Louis Barbati, my cousin married his cousin back about 45 years ago, but I knew Louis even before that because I lived in Gravesend. I grew up there, and Spumoni Gardens had been in business before I was born, and it was a local place that we would go there for pizza and ice cream. So I knew Louis from growing up, from being served on. I would see Louis at family functions, parties, weddings, things of that nature. So I knew him pretty well.
What kind of person was Louis as a businessman, a father, a husband?
Louis was just a happy-go-lucky guy. He spent all of his life in L&B Spumoni Gardens behind the counter, preparing food, hero sandwiches. Big guy, very friendly. I don't think I've ever heard him raise his voice in anger or anything like that. I've never seen him in any arguments, anything like that. But he was just a real good guy.
I'm going to switch gears and start talking about June 30th of 2016. And I'll ask you, when did you learn and how did you learn what had happened to Louis Barbati?
I was actually on my way. It was a Thursday night. I'll never forget it. I was on my way to Spumoni Gardens, and I'd gotten a call from a family member saying that Lulu had been shot by his house. The person that called me was kind of frantic and I guess confused, and I said, well, what's the story? Is he alive? And they restated back to me that he was in the ambulance, and it wasn't true. It turned out he had been shot and killed, and his body was in the backyard of the home.
Did you arrive on the scene? What action did you take after that phone call?
Yes, I drove right to the scene, major crime scene. Everything's roped off with regard to the backyard and the street outside where the entrance to the backyard is. But I go into the home. I wanted to console Lulu's wife, and it was kind of a chaotic scene. There were police officers trying to get information. There were family members. And at the kitchen table was Lulu's wife. She had like an apron on. She was covered in blood, her hands, her clothing, hysterical crying. But it was a very eerie scene because Lulu was coming in through the backyard, and there was a sliding glass door right off the kitchen. And she was sitting at the table, and there was 4 place settings for Lulu, his wife, and the 2 children. And there was, it was almost like a perfect setting. There was the napkin with the fork and the knife and spoon and the glass and the dish. The point is they were going to have dinner. He never made it. He never made it. He made it to the backyard, and then he was killed.
You mentioned botched robbery was immediately a part of the conversation.
Yes.
When you arrived. What indication was there at the scene that this is what it could have been?
There was a bag of money, and it looked like the bag had been ripped. So it looked like there could have been a struggle. That's the indication that I got. And from my experience being a veteran detective, I was understanding that they were laying out a botched robbery scenario. One of the detectives actually told me, he referred to the perpetrator as amateur hour. He said, we have witnesses, this is very early on, they had witnesses that had seen the perpetrator parked across the street from the home, and they felt that there was going to be plenty of video evidence with regard to the whole incident.
So you're there on the scene, a family friend of yours, you're being told it's not looking good, or he has already passed at the time that you had arrived.
He was dead.
How do those hours in the immediate aftermath play out?
Early on, there was talk of, whether or not this was an organized crime-related murder. And listen, I get it. This is the part of Brooklyn where a lot of organized crime stuff had taken place in the past. You have a business owner, prominent business owner in Brooklyn, killed in broad daylight. So I guess it kind of had the earmarks of what could be a organized crime related homicide. However, FBI was involved right from the early stages of this investigation, and they really wanted to do a thorough investigation to see if there was an organized crime connection. And later on, it was clear that there was no organized crime connection in this case, and that was actually brought out at trial.
Can you elaborate? What do you know about the bag of money, how much there was, and where that had come from? A
few times a year, they would there would be an excess of cash, and they would hand out bonuses to the specific partners in the business. That day, Lulu was carrying his bonus money. I believe it was about $15,000.
Why would an FBI agent get involved in a case like this? And in this case specifically, what were they looking at?
Well, listen, in my opinion, rightfully so. Now, if I'm going to look at it from the outside, say I don't know the family or anything like that, and you hear of a shooting, broad daylight, 6 or 7 p.m., June 30th, the summer night, a person is gunned down in the street. They have a vowel at the end of their name, they're Italian, so right away everybody's going to think organized crime. It's in the heart of Brooklyn where, like I said earlier, there was a lot of organized crime incidents and people that had taken place over the years. So the FBI looking into the case, in my opinion, was rightfully so. I think that, you know, there was, if I was an investigator, whether it be in the NYPD looking at organized crime or the FBI, I would definitely want to do some, you know, some query into what happened with the case. As time went on, it really became clear that this was not, you know, an organized crime related homicide.
Kind of hand in hand with that is this whole conversation surrounding the secret sauce that has often come up over the course of this investigation.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
You know, the secret sauce story is really, it's a rumor, it's a bad rumor. There's no secret sauce. The way that they do the pizza is they put the cheese on the bottom, where most pizzerias will put the cheese on the top of the sauce, and then they put the cheese, the sauce, and then they put, I guess, grated cheese and olive oil and stuff like that. And, you know, they came up with this rumor that there was a secret sauce recipe and there was, you know, some kind of threats or some type of extortion. Never happened as far as I know. There is no secret sauce recipe. If you look at the videos that are on YouTube, you'll see how the pizza is made, and it's just their way of doing it, and for whatever reason, people love it. So it's a great recipe, and the pizza is great, but there is no secret sauce recipe, I can tell you that.
Let's, I guess, move along to some of the key pieces of evidence in those first few days. In your mind, what emerged from that scene that became a key piece? 5
shots were fired. All 5 shots hit Lulu. 3 of the shots were fired through the fence. And what I think happened, from what I know about the crime scene, I know about, you know, the area, it appears that he was accosted as he was trying to get into his yard. Perhaps the first 2 shots were fired, and then he closed the gate, and then the next 3 went through the gate and struck him. With that said, there was a lot of video evidence. There was actual video of the perpetrator hours before, you know, outside the back entrance of L&B. There was video evidence of him maybe an hour or 2 before the incident, driving by, walking by, and then there was video of him parking and sitting in the car before Lulu got home for a period of time. And then when Lulu pulls up, he exits the vehicle, he crosses the street. When I say he, the perpetrator, Andy Fernandez, and he goes behind a tree across the street from where Lulu is. He's wearing a hoodie, and it's pretty warm out. It's June 30th. It's just before 7 p.m., I believe, at night. The streets are alive. It's not raining or anything. It's a nice day. And he's wearing this hoodie. He goes behind the tree. He puts on a black glove, and he produces the firearm. And then you see him go out of camera angle towards the direction where Lulu was. And then the shots are fired, and then you see him flee back to his car across the street, and he takes off. And there was video evidence of him speeding away, traffic cameras all the way to the Bell Parkway, where he made his escape, I believe, back to Long Island.